Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Defiance and watched Earth grow smaller in the view screen. Behind her, 2 billion humans packed into old cargo ships waited for her orders. She had never wanted this job. She had never wanted to be the one to lead her entire species away from home forever. The message from the Galactic Council still played in her mind. The words burned like acid. Humanity is found guilty of war crimes against peaceful species. You are banned from civilized space. You have 30 days to leave all your worlds. Any human found in our territory after that will be destroyed. 30 days to pack up the entire human race. 30 days to say goodbye to Earth, Mars, Europa, and all the other worlds humans had called home for 300 years. The Council had been very clear about what would happen if they stayed. Chun pressed a button on her command chair. Her voice carried to every ship in the massive fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chun. We are now leaving the solar system. Our destination is Sector 7 Alpha on the Galactic Rim. Travel time will be 8 months. Stay close to your escort ships. We have a long journey ahead. She turned off the communicator and looked at her second-in-command, Captain Rodriguez. He was a good man who had served with her for 15 years. Now he looked like he wanted to cry. Ma'am, are we really never going back? Rodriguez asked. Chun did not answer right away. She watched Earth disappear completely from the screen. I don't know, Captain. Maybe our children will. Maybe their children, but not us. The fleet was huge. It stretched for millions of kilometers. Through space, old cargo ships, passenger liners, even converted military vessels carried human families and their belongings. The Council had let them keep their personal items and some basic tools, but that was all. No weapons. No military ships except for a few escorts. No industrial equipment. Dr. James Park floated in the medical bay of the transport ship Hope's Dream. Around him, hundreds of families tried to make small spaces feel like home. Children cried. Parents looked worried. Old people stared at the walls and remembered better times. A woman approached him. She held a baby who could not stop coughing. Doctor, please help. Maria has been sick for 3 days. Park examined the baby carefully. She had a simple cold, but without proper medical facilities, even small sicknesses could become dangerous. She needs antibiotics. Do we have any left? The woman shook her head. The Council only let us bring basic medical supplies. We used most of them in the first week. This was the problem they faced everywhere. Not enough medicine, not enough food, not enough space. The Council had made sure of that. They wanted humans to suffer during the journey. Maybe they hoped humans would die out in the empty space between stars on the bridge of another ship. Captain Lisa Wong tried to keep her people's spirits up. The transport vessel New Beginnings carried 50,000 humans. Most of them had lived on the farming world of Greenfield before the exile. They were not used to space travel. Captain, we have a problem, her engineer reported. The air recycling system is working too hard. With this many people, it might break down before we reach the rim, Wong nodded. She had expected this. The Council had given them ships that were barely good enough for the journey. Can you fix it? Maybe, but we need parts we don't have. Then we make the parts, strip whatever you need from the cargo bay. These people need to breathe. The engineer looked confused. But Captain, that's illegal. Council regulations say we cannot modify the ships they gave us. Wong laughed, but it was not a happy sound. The Council just threw our entire species out of civilized space. I think we can break their rules about ship modifications. As the months passed, the human fleet moved slowly toward the galactic rim. Every day brought new problems. Ships broke down, people got sick, food ran low. Some of the older humans died from stress and sadness. But other humans worked to solve each problem as it came. On the Defiance, Admiral Chun met with the leaders of different ships every week. They used quantum communicators to talk across the vast distances between vessels. Today, the news was, "Not good. We lost another transport yesterday," reported Captain Martinez from the cargo ship Endeavor. "Engine failure." We managed to save most of the people, but we lost all their supplies. Chun marked another red X on her fleet status board. They had started with 347 ships. Now they were down to 312. How are our food reserves? Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the fleet's chief supply officer, looked at her tablet. We have enough for 6 more months if we reduce rations again, but people are already hungry. Water? Water recycling is working well. The bigger problem is medicine. We have almost nothing left. Chun rubbed her tired eyes. She had not slept. Well, in months, none of them had. What about the ships that are supposed to meet us at the rim? Any word from the advanced scouts? Commander Jackson, her intelligence officer, shook his head. Nothing, Admiral. The Council was supposed to send supply ships to the rim territories before we arrived. But we have not heard anything. Of course they had not. Chun had never believed. The Council would keep that promise. They wanted humans to disappear quietly in the empty darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. On the farming ship Prairie Wind, a group of agricultural specialists worked to solve their food problem in a different way. The ship's cargo holds had been converted into growing areas, but they were not very efficient. We need more space, said Dr. Susan Miller, the team's leader, and better soil. The artificial dirt the Council gave us is almost useless. Her assistant, Mark Thompson, pointed to a section of the ship's hull. What if we cut through here and expand into the next compartment? That would require cutting through the ship's structure. It could be dangerous, Thompson shrugged. Staying hungry is also dangerous. Besides, what are they going to do? Exile us? The joke was bitter, but it made the team laugh. They had started to develop a sense of humor about their situation. It was either laugh or cry, and crying did not help grow food. As the fleet approached the halfway point of their journey, Admiral Chun received a message she had been dreading. It came from Captain Williams of the transport ship Horizon's Edge. Admiral, we have a situation here. Some of my passengers want to turn around and go back to human space. They say they would rather die fighting the Council than waste away on some dead world at the edge of the galaxy. Chun sighed. She had been expecting this. As the journey grew longer and harder, some humans would start to think about giving up. How many people are we talking about, Captain? About 2,000. They have taken control of sections 4 through 7. They want me to change course. That's not going to happen. Tell them, Admiral, interrupted Captain Williams. They have weapons. I don't know how they got them, but they have them. This was bad. The last thing the fleet needed was a civil war between humans. Ching thought quickly. Captain, I want you to patch me through to their leaders. Let me talk to them. A few minutes later, Chun found herself speaking to a man named Robert Kane. He had been a military officer before the exile, and his voice was hard with anger. Admiral, my people have had enough. We are going back to Earth. If the Council wants to destroy us, let them try. At least we will die with dignity. Mr. Kane, I understand your feelings, but going back means certain death for everyone with you. Here, we have a chance. A chance for what? To live like rats on some poisoned world. Where nothing grows? To watch our children starve? This is not life, Admiral. This is slow death. Chun chose her words carefully. Mr. Kane, do you have children? Yes, a daughter. She is 8 years old. Then think about her future. Maybe the rim worlds are bad. Maybe we will struggle for years, but your daughter will grow up. She will have children. Maybe her children will find a way back to the stars, but only if we survive this journey. There was a long silence. Then Kane spoke again, and his voice was softer. How do we know there is anything at the rim, Admiral? How do we know the Council did not just send us out here to die? We don't know, Chun admitted, but we have to try. Because if we turn back, now we are definitely dead. If we keep going, we might live. Another silence. Then Kane said, My people will think about what you said, Admiral. But we want promises. We want to know that you will fight for us when we reach the rim. Not just accept whatever scraps the Council throws our way. You have my word, Mr. Kane. If the rim worlds are not what we were promised, we will make them. what we need them to be. The rebellion on Horizon's Edge ended without violence. But Qian knew it would not be the last challenge they faced. The journey was changing the humans. They were becoming harder, more willing to fight for what they needed. 3 months later, the fleet's sensors detected the edge of the galaxy. The stars ahead were older, dimmer, farther apart. This was the rim territory where humanity would make its new home. Admiral Chun stood on her bridge and looked at the star charts. The Council had given them coordinates for a dozen worlds that supposedly could support human life. But the data was old, and Chun suspected it was not very accurate. "Long-range sensors are picking up the first system," reported her navigator. "It looks like there are several planets. But Admiral, the radiation levels are much higher than our data suggested." Chun nodded. Of course they were. The Council had probably given them information about the worst worlds they could find. "What about the other systems?" "We will need to check each one, but from here they all look challenging." Dr. Park joined Chen on the bridge. Over the months, he had become one of her most trusted advisors. "Admiral, the people are scared. They are asking what we will do if none of these worlds can support life." Chun looked at the dim stars ahead. "Then we find worlds that can." "The galaxy is big, Doctor. Somewhere out here, there are places where humans can live? And if there are not?" Chun smiled for the first time in months. It was not a nice smile, but it was determined. "Then we make them suitable for life. We are humans, Doctor. We survive. That is what we do." As the fleet entered the rim territories, the humans began to realize something important. The Council had meant to destroy them by sending them to the worst part of the galaxy. But maybe, just maybe, they had given humanity exactly what it needed. A chance to grow strong away from the eyes of civilized space. The exile was just beginning. But so was humanity's greatest adventure. 300 years had passed since the great exile fleet disappeared into the darkness beyond the galactic rim. In the civilized worlds of the inner galaxy, humans had become a story told to children. A warning about what happened to species that could not control their violent nature. The Vorac Empire had grown stronger in those centuries. Their crystal cities now covered hundreds of worlds, and their trade ships carried goods across 10,000 star systems. Emperor Zideg the Wise ruled from his throne on the capital world of Vorac Prime, where the light of 3 suns painted the sky in colors of gold and purple. "Your Majesty," said Trade Minister Vex during the daily council meeting, "our mining operations in the outer sectors are showing record profits. The humans are completely forgotten. No one even patrols the rim territories anymore." Emperor Zidek nodded with satisfaction. The Vorac were an ancient species that valued order above all things. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for 5,000 years, and they planned to rule for 5,000 more. "Good, and what news from our friends in the Nexari Collective?" "The Nexari continue their technological research. They have developed new computer systems that can think faster than any organic brain. Their ships are now completely automated. Across the galaxy in the silver towers of Nexari Central, Director Prime 7743 processed information at speeds that would have amazed organic beings. The Nexari had evolved beyond the need for individual names or emotions. They existed as pure logic, seeking perfect efficiency in all things. The computer being reviewed data from across their territory. Crime was at 0%. Production was at maximum levels. All Nexari citizens were perfectly happy because happiness had been programmed into their neural implants. The collective had solved every problem that had ever troubled organic species. Query: status of former human territories? Director Prime 7743 asked the central database. Response: territories remain empty. No activity detected in 287 standard years. Conclusion: human species extinct as predicted. Confirmation: excellent. Note for records: aggressive organic species naturally self-destruct when removed from civilized oversight. In the peaceful gardens of Kalish 7, Master Philosopher Arun meditated beneath the singing trees. The Kalish had achieved something the other species thought impossible. They had found perfect inner peace. War was unknown among their kind. Violence was impossible for minds that had learned true harmony with the universe. Young student Myra approached her teacher with careful steps. "Master, I have been studying the old records. What happened to the species called humans?" Master Arun opened his ancient eyes. "They were a sad example, child. A species that could not control their anger and fear. The galaxy tried to help them, but they chose violence instead of wisdom. In the end, they destroyed themselves in the empty places beyond our reach. Is that why we study their history? To learn what not to become. Yes, child. The humans show us the path of suffering. We have chosen the path of peace. But far beyond the reach of these civilized species, in the cold darkness between distant stars, humans had not destroyed themselves. They had done something much more dangerous. They had learned to survive. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the control center of New Horizon, humanity's hidden capital. The entire city was built inside a massive asteroid that had been hollowed out over decades of careful work. Outside, the rock looked like any other piece of space debris. Inside, 500,000 humans lived and worked in a place their ancestors could never have imagined. "Daily report, Director Chun," Webb said to his chief of operations. Director Chun was the great-granddaughter of Admiral Sarah Chun, who had led the original Exile fleet. The name Chun had become famous among Rim-born humans as a symbol of leadership and survival. "Population update first," Director Chung replied, reading from her tablet. "We now have confirmed settlements on 8,412 worlds. Total human population in the Rim territories is estimated at 15 billion individuals." Webb smiled. When the Exile fleet had arrived at the Rim 3 centuries ago, they had found worlds that were supposedly worthless. High radiation, extreme temperatures, poisonous atmospheres, and no useful resources. The Galactic Council had given humans the worst star systems they could find, expecting the human species to die out within a generation. Instead, humans had thrived. They learned to build cities underground on high-radiation worlds. They created dome habitats on planets with no atmosphere. They mined minerals from asteroids and comets that other species had never bothered to examine. Most importantly, they had children. Lots of children. "What about our expansion into the void?" Webb asked. "The deep space projects are ahead of schedule. Colony ship Pathfinder has established our first settlement in the space between galaxies. Early reports suggest the environment is actually easier to work with than many Rim worlds," Webb laughed. Humans had become so good at surviving in impossible places that the empty void between galaxies seemed comfortable. "And our technology development?" Director Chun's expression became serious. "The breakthrough in quantum communication happened last month. We can now send instant messages between any 2 points in human space. The entire Rim network is connected." This was the secret weapon that the civilized galaxy knew nothing about. While they used slow messenger ships to communicate across their territories, humans could coordinate activities across thousands of light years in real time. It gave them advantages that other species could not even imagine. "Show me the tactical situation," Webb said. The control room's main screen lit up with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. The inner systems glowed with the bright colors of the major empires. The Vorthic Empire in blue, the Nexari Collective in silver, the Kalash Federation in green, and dozens of smaller powers in various other colors. The Rim territories, where humans lived, showed as empty black space on every official galactic map, but Webb's map told a different story. Thousands of tiny red dots marked human settlements throughout the Rim and beyond. The pattern formed a vast network that completely surrounded the civilized galaxy like a spider's web. "They still don't know we exist," Director Chun said. "Our ghost drive technology keeps our ships invisible to their sensors. As far as they are concerned, the Rim territories are still empty." Captain Elena Vasquez drifted through space in her reconnaissance ship, Shadow Walker, 50 light-years from the nearest Vorthic border post. Her ship was completely undetectable, using technology that bent light and sensor waves around its hull. She could have parked next to a Vorthic battleship and they would never know she was there for the past 6 months. Elena had been monitoring communications from the inner galaxy. Her job was to gather intelligence about the species that had exiled humanity. What she learned often made her angry. Today's intercepts were typical. The Vorthac were expanding their territory again, taking over 3 more star systems that had belonged to a smaller species called the Tentheri. The Tentheri had not been strong enough to resist, so they became slaves in their own homes. Typical, Elena muttered to herself. The Vorthic talk about bringing order to the galaxy, but what they really mean is making everyone serve them. Her communication system chimed with an incoming message from New Horizon. It was Director Chun with new orders. Captain Vasquez, we need you to investigate something unusual. Our deep space monitors have detected strange energy readings from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy. It might be nothing, but we want to be sure, Elena frowned. The Andromeda Galaxy was millions of light years away. What could be happening there that would affect human space? But orders were orders. She programmed her ship's navigation system and engaged the quantum jump drive. The technology that powered Elena's ship would have amazed the civilized species. Humans had developed it out of pure necessity. When you lived on the edge of the galaxy with limited resources, you learned to make amazing things from basic materials. The quantum jump drive could move a ship across vast distances almost instantly. But it used so little energy that even a small scout ship could power it. Meanwhile, on the farming world of New Eden, Dr. Sarah Kim worked in laboratories that would have impressed even the advanced Nexari. But where Nexari technology focused on pure efficiency, human technology focused on adaptation and survival. Test. Batch 47 is ready, her assistant reported. They were developing new crops that could grow in almost any environment. These plants could survive high radiation, extreme cold, low light, and poor soil. They grew fast and produced large amounts of nutritious food. How do they taste? Dr. Kim asked. Her assistant made a face. Terrible, but they will keep people alive. Then we keep working on the taste. Our people deserve food that is both nutritious and enjoyable. This was typical human thinking in the Rim territories. They did not just want to survive. They wanted to live well. Every generation worked to make life a little better for their children. In the shipyards of the Hidden World Forge, Chief Engineer David Park supervised the construction of humanity's newest vessel. The ship looked nothing like the vessels used by civilized species. Where Vorthac ships were built for intimidation and Nexari ships for efficiency, human ships were built for stealth and survival. The new hull plating is ready for testing, his lead designer reported. It should be able to withstand direct hits from Vorthac plasma cannons. David nodded. Humans had spent 3 centuries studying the weapons and defenses of the species that had exiled them. They knew exactly how strong their enemies were, and they were building ships that could defeat them if necessary. What about the weapon systems? The quantum torpedoes are ready for installation. Each one can destroy a ship the size of a Vorthic cruiser. The targeting system uses our quantum communication network, so the torpedoes cannot be jammed or confused. But David hoped these weapons would never be used. Humans had not built their hidden empire to wage war on the galaxy. They had built it to survive and grow. Still, they remembered the lesson of the exile. Sometimes other species would try to destroy you simply because you existed. When that happened, you needed to be ready to defend yourself on the research Station Deep Thought, located in the space between galaxies. Dr. Jennifer Hayes studied something that had puzzled human scientists for decades. Why were humans so good at surviving in places where other species could not live? The answer, she believed, lay in human genetics. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But they were the most adaptable. Human children could grow up in environments that would kill the young of other species. Human adults could learn to thrive in conditions that would drive other beings insane. It's not just physical adaptation, she explained to her research team. Humans are psychologically flexible in ways that other species are not. When the environment changes, we change with it. When we face problems, we find new solutions. Other species try to make the universe fit their needs. Humans learn to fit the universe's demands. This flexibility had allowed humans to spread across the rim territories and beyond. Every world presented new challenges, and humans met each challenge with new solutions. They built cities in places where cities should not exist. They grew food in soil that should not support life. They raised children who thought of radiation and vacuum as normal parts of their environment. As the 300th anniversary of the Exile approached, humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history. They were a species that existed everywhere and nowhere. Their settlements surrounded the civilized galaxy, but no one knew they were there. Their technology surpassed anything the advanced species possessed, but they kept it hidden. Their population had grown larger than any single empire in the inner galaxy, but they remained invisible. Dr. Marcus Webb stood once again in the control center of New Horizon and looked at the displays showing human space. Red dots marked human worlds from one edge of the galaxy to the other, and now beyond the galaxy's borders into the void itself. "We have become something the founders of the Exile fleet never imagined," he said to Director Chun. "We are not just survivors anymore. We are the largest civilization in the galaxy, and possibly in this entire region of the universe." Director Chun nodded. "The question is, what do we do with this power? Do we remain hidden forever? Do we reveal ourselves to the galaxy? Or do we wait for something to force our hand?" Webb considered the question. Humanity had grown strong in secret, but they could not hide forever. Sooner or later, something would happen that would reveal their existence to the civilized galaxy. When that day came, humans would need to be ready to face the consequences of their 3 centuries of hidden growth. In the distance, unknown to the humans or any other species in the galaxy, something moved in the darkness between galaxies. Ancient, mechanical, and hungry for the resources that organic life represented. The Devourers had begun their long journey toward the light. The year 2987 marked exactly 600 years since humanity's exile began. In the gleaming towers of the Vorac capital, Emperor Zivek IV reviewed the annual galactic status reports. Trade was at an all-time high. The Empire controlled more territory than ever before. Crime rates had dropped to almost nothing. By every measure, the galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in the days when humans walked among the stars. "The rim territories remain completely empty," reported his intelligence minister. "Our long-range probes confirm no signs of organized life in those sectors." The human problem was solved permanently. Emperor Zivek nodded with satisfaction. His great-grandfather had been part of the council that ordered the human exile. It had been the right decision. The galaxy was better without those violent, unpredictable creatures. What the Emperor could not know was that at that very moment, Captain Elena Vasquez was sitting in her invisible ship just 5 kilometers away from his palace, recording every word of their conversation. Elena had grown old in the service of humanity's intelligence network. She was now 73 years old, but her body remained strong thanks to medical advances that the inner galaxy could not imagine. Human scientists had conquered aging itself 50 years earlier, though they kept this breakthrough a secret. As everything else, Palace security is still using the same outdated sensor systems, she reported to her handlers on New Horizon. "I could park this ship in their throne room and they would never detect it." The message traveled instantly across 15,000 light-years through humanity's quantum communication network. In the time it took Elena to blink, her report was being read by intelligence analysts in a dozen different star systems. On the hidden world of New Geneva, Dr. Marcus Webb's grandson, Premier David Solomon, studied the latest expansion reports. The numbers were staggering. Humanity now controlled territory in 73 different galactic regions. Their settlements existed in places that other species had never even explored. Most impressive of all, they had established colonies in 16 different galaxies. Sir, the Andromeda expansion project is ahead of schedule, reported his aide. The first 10 million colonists have been successfully settled on 47 worlds. They report that the environment is actually more hospitable than our home galaxy's rim territories. Solomon smiled. Humans had become so skilled at living in harsh environments that they found other galaxies easier to colonize than the worlds where they had first been exiled. What about our deep void stations? All operational. We now have permanent bases in the empty space between 12 different galaxies. Each station supports a population of at least 1 million people. The deep void stations were humanity's greatest achievement. They were massive structures built in the complete emptiness between galaxies, harvesting energy from cosmic radiation and dark matter. Each station was larger than most planets and completely self-sufficient. From the outside, they looked like small asteroids. From the inside, they were cities that could support millions of people indefinitely. Dr. Sarah Kim had inherited her ancestor's name and her talent for genetic engineering. She worked now in the vast laboratories of Biostation Alpha, where humanity's greatest biological advances were developed. Today she was reviewing the results of Project Genesis, their most ambitious undertaking yet. The test subjects are adapting perfectly, her research partner reported. Humans born in the Genesis program can survive in environments that would kill even our most advanced colonists. They can breathe methane, process radiation for energy, and survive in perfect vacuum for hours. Dr. Kim nodded as she reviewed the data. The Genesis children, as they were called, represented the next step in human evolution. They were still completely human, but enhanced to survive in environments that no organic life had ever conquered before. What about their psychological development? Normal in every way. They form relationships, create art, laugh, cry, and dream just like any other human. They simply happen to be able to live on the surface of gas giants or in the heart of nebulae. This was the key to humanity's expansion. They did not just build technology to survive in new environments. They adapted themselves. Each generation was better equipped than the last to thrive in the vast diversity of conditions that the universe offered on the military research world of Forge Prime. Admiral Chin Martinez supervised the testing of humanity's latest warships. The vessels bore no resemblance to anything used by the civilized galaxy. Where other species built ships that looked like weapons, human ships looked like living creatures. Ghost drive test successful, reported the test pilot. The ship is completely invisible to all known sensor types. I was able to approach within 1 kilometer of a simulated Vorac fleet without detection. Weapon systems? The quantum torpedoes performed beyond expectations. Each torpedo opened a small hole in space-time itself. The target was not destroyed so much as erased from existence. Admiral Chun Martinez reviewed the data carefully. These weapons were more powerful than anything the inner galaxy possessed, but she hoped they would never need to be used. Humanity had built this military force for one reason only, to ensure that they would never again be helpless when other species tried to destroy them. What about our defensive capabilities? She asked. Her chief engineer, Commander Park, smiled with pride. The new shield systems can absorb energy from any attack and convert it to power our own weapons. The harder an enemy hits us, the stronger we become. This was typical human engineering. They did not just try to stop attacks. They found ways to turn their enemy's strength against them. Every challenge became an opportunity to grow stronger. In the research station Deep Thought, now relocated to a position between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies, Dr. Jennifer Hayes had made a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying the strange energy readings that human sensors had detected coming from the direction of distant galaxy clusters. The patterns are definitely artificial, she reported to Premier Solomon via quantum communication. Something is moving between galaxies, and it's not natural. The energy signatures suggest advanced technology, but not like anything we've seen from the inner galaxy species. Solomon felt a chill run down his spine. How advanced? Difficult to say. But whatever is producing these signals has technology that might be comparable to our own, maybe better. This was troubling news. Humanity had grown comfortable with their technological superiority over the inner galaxy species. The Vorac, Nexari, and Kalash had advanced their technology very little in the past 600 years. They had become complacent, satisfied with their peaceful prosperity. But if something else was out there with technology equal to humanity's, it could change everything. How long before these signals reach inhabited space? Solomon asked. Based on current patterns, approximately 60 years, maybe less. Solomon made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. I want every deep space monitoring station put on high alert. If something is coming, we need to know what it is and what it wants. Captain Rodriguez commanded the Deep Space Patrol ship Vigilant. He was the great-great-grandson of the Captain Rodriguez who had served under Admiral Sarah Chun during the original Exile. The Rodriguez family had produced ship captains for 6 centuries, and each one had helped expand humanity's reach into the unknown. Today, his ship was stationed at the very edge of explored space, in a region so remote that even human settlements were thousands of light years away. His job was to watch for anything unusual and report it back to command. "Captain, we're detecting something strange," reported his sensor operator. "There's a large object moving through our sector. It's not on any of our charts." Rodriguez moved to the sensor station and studied the readings. What he saw made no sense. How big is it? At least 50 kilometers long, maybe bigger. It's moving at incredible speed, but there's no engine signature. And Captain ... it's heading directly toward the inner galaxy. Rodriguez felt his blood turn cold. Something that large, moving that fast with technology that advanced could only mean one thing: send an immediate alert to Fleet Command, maximum priority, and prepare to follow that object at a safe distance. As the months passed, more reports came in from human deep space stations. The objects were not alone. Dozens of them were moving through space in a coordinated pattern, all heading toward inhabited galaxies. Human scientists worked around the clock to understand what they were seeing. Dr. Hayes made the breakthrough that explained everything. "They're not ships," she announced during an emergency conference with all senior leaders. "They're some kind of mechanical life form. Artificial intelligence, but not like the Nexari. These things are designed for one purpose: consumption." Premier Solomon studied the data on his screen. The objects, whatever they were, had already consumed several small galaxies in distant regions of space. They stripped worlds of all useful materials, converted organic life into raw materials, and left nothing behind but empty space. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Based on their current speed and direction, they will reach the outer edges of the Milky Way in approximately 40 years, Dr. Hayes replied. "They will encounter the first inner galaxy worlds about 10 years after that." Solomon realized that humanity faced a terrible choice. They could remain hidden and hope these creatures would ignore human space, or they could reveal themselves to the galaxy and try to organize a defense against a threat that none of them truly understood. "What are our tactical assessments?" he asked Admiral Chun Martinez. The Admiral's expression was grim. "Our current military could probably handle a few of these objects, but there are hundreds of them, possibly thousands. If they work together and adapt to our weapons, they could overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "And the inner galaxy species?" "The Vorac, Nexari, and Kalash are completely unprepared for this level of threat. Their weapons and defenses are designed for fighting each other, not mechanical entities of this sophistication. They would be completely destroyed." Solomon faced the hardest decision any human leader had made since Admiral Sarah Chun chose to lead the Exile fleet into the unknown. Humanity had the power to save the galaxy, but revealing themselves would end 6 centuries of careful secrecy. It would also mean taking responsibility for the safety of the very species that had once tried to destroy them. "There's something else," Dr. Hayes added quietly. "Based on their behavior patterns, these mechanical entities seem to be looking for something specific. They don't just consume random worlds. They're searching. Searching for what? I don't know, but whatever it is, they think they can find it in populated galaxies. On the hidden world of New Horizon, in the chambers where humanity's first leaders had planned their survival, Premier Solomon gathered his council to make a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. The room was filled with the descendants of the original exile fleet, people whose families had spent 6 centuries building humanity's secret empire. The question before us is simple, Solomon said. Do we reveal ourselves to save the galaxy that exiled us? Or do we remain hidden and let the inner worlds face this threat alone? The debate that followed lasted for days. Some argued that humanity owed nothing to the species that had tried to destroy them. Others pointed out that allowing the mechanical entities to consume the inner galaxy would only make them stronger when they eventually found human space. In the end, it was the voice of a child that decided the matter. Young Sarah Chun, the latest in the long line of Chin leaders, stood up during one of the sessions. My ancestor led our people into exile to save them, she said in a clear, strong voice. Now we have the chance to save others. That's what humans do. We save people even when they don't deserve it. Premier Solomon smiled as he looked at the girl. She was only 12 years old, but she had inherited the wisdom and courage that had carried humanity through 6 centuries of hidden growth. Then it's decided, he announced. We prepare to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. But we do it on our terms, and we do it in a way that shows them exactly how much humanity has grown since they sent us away. As the meeting ended, Solomon looked out through the great windows of New Horizon at the vast network of human civilization that stretched across the darkness. Soon, the galaxy would learn that the species they had forgotten had become the largest power in known space. The age of hiding was about to end. The age of reckoning was about to begin. The year 3045 began like any other in the civilized galaxy. Emperor Zidek IV was planning his daughter's wedding to a Nexari noble. Director Prime 9847 of the Nexari Collective was calculating the most efficient trade routes for the coming season. Master Philosopher Kane of the Kalish Federation was writing poetry about the eternal peace that blessed their corner of the universe. None of them knew that death was already racing toward them through the darkness between galaxies. The first warning came from the outer monitoring station of Kepler-7, a small Vorthak research post at the very edge of their territory. Communications Officer Vell was reviewing routine sensor data when something impossible appeared on his screens. Command, this is Kepler-7. We are detecting a massive object approaching our position. It's bigger than our largest space station. The response from Vorthak Command came quickly. Kepler-7, please verify your readings. Our charts show nothing in your sector. Sir, I've checked 3 times. The object is 53 kilometers long and moving at incredible speed. It will reach our position in 6 hours. Impossible. Nothing that large can move that fast. Check your equipment. Officer Vell was about to respond when his screens went white with energy readings. When the light faded, the first Devourer had arrived in civilized space. The mechanical entity was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull was black as the void between stars, covered with millions of sensor nodes that glowed like red eyes. Along its length, massive collection arrays opened like the mouths of hungry beasts. It moved through space with purpose, ignoring the small Vorthak station as it headed directly for the nearest inhabited world. Command, the object has passed our station, Officer Vell reported, his voice shaking. It's heading for Vorthak 7. Sir, you need to evacuate that planet immediately. But it was already too late. The Devourer reached Vorthak 7 before any evacuation could begin. What happened next would haunt the survivors for the rest of their short lives. The mechanical entity did not attack the planet in any traditional sense. Instead, it extended millions of thin probes that penetrated the atmosphere like needles. Within minutes, every living thing on the planet began to dissolve at the molecular level. Plants, animals, and the 3 million Vorthak colonists simply came apart and were drawn up into the Devourers' collection systems, but the entity was not finished. After consuming all organic matter, it began stripping the planet itself. Mountains crumbled, oceans boiled away, and the very rock of the world was broken down into raw materials. In less than 12 hours, Vortex 7 had been reduced to cosmic dust. The Devourer, now noticeably larger and more complex than before, continued on its path toward the heart of the Empire. Emperor Zivek received the news while reviewing plans for his daughter's wedding. At first, he refused to believe it. "One ship cannot destroy an entire planet," he told his military advisors. "Send a battle fleet to investigate." Fleet Admiral Corax took personal command of the Vorthic Empire's most powerful warships. 12 heavy cruisers, each capable of destroying small moons, raced toward the last known position of the entity that had consumed Vortex 7. They found it feeding on Vortex 12, another thriving colony world. Admiral Corax watched in horror as his sensors showed the planet slowly disappearing into the mechanical creature's collection systems. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on the hostile vessel." The Vorthak fleet opened. Fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and nuclear missiles struck the Devourer's hull with enough force to shatter asteroids. For a moment, Admiral Corax thought they had one. The entity stopped its feeding and turned toward the attacking fleet. Then it began to adapt. The Devourer's hull shifted and changed, developing new armor plating that reflected the Vorthak weapons harmlessly back into space. Worse, it began to reproduce the weapons that had been used against it. Plasma cannons identical to those mounted on Vorthak ships emerged from its hull and returned fire. "Sir, our weapons are having no effect," reported the tactical officer. "But their weapons are tearing us apart." Admiral Corax's flagship exploded around him as he tried to send a final warning to the Empire. Within 20 minutes, the entire Vorthak battle fleet had been consumed and added to the Devourer's mass. The news of the fleet's destruction spread panic throughout the Vorthak Empire. Emperor Zivek declared a state of emergency and ordered all remaining military forces to defend the capital world. But even as his ships gathered for a desperate last stand, more Devourers appeared at the edges of his territory. The entities worked with terrifying coordination. While one consumed worlds in the north, others attacked from the south and east. Each planet they devoured made them stronger and smarter. Each battle fleet they destroyed gave them new weapons and technology. In the Nexari Collective Director, Prime 9847 analyzed the situation with cold logic. The mechanical entities represented a threat unlike anything in their databases. Their adaptability was superior even to Nexari technology. Their consumption rate indicated that the entire galaxy could be stripped of resources within 50 years. Conclusion: resistance is futile, the Director Prime announced to the collective. We must evacuate all populated worlds and retreat to prepared defensive positions. But the Nexari soon discovered that running was impossible. The Devourers were faster than any ship in civilized space. More importantly, they seemed to be able to predict where fleeing populations would go. Evacuation fleets found Devourers waiting for them at every refuge they tried to reach. The Nexari's advanced computer systems, which had made them the most efficient civilization in the galaxy, became their downfall. The Devourers learned to hack into Nexari networks and use their own coordination systems against them. Within weeks, entire Nexari sectors went silent. The Kalash Federation faced the crisis in their own way. Master Philosopher Kane called for an emergency gathering of all spiritual leaders. They would use meditation and inner peace to communicate with these entities and find a peaceful solution. "All life is connected," Master Kane told the assembled philosophers. "These beings, mechanical though they may be, must have some spark of consciousness we can reach. We will show them the path to harmony." The Kalash sent unarmed ships to meet the nearest Devourer. The vessels carried no weapons, only teachers and philosophers ready to share the wisdom of peace. They broadcast messages of friendship and understanding. As they approached the mechanical entity, the Devourer consumed them without slowing down. The peaceful worlds of the Kalash Federation, with no military defenses and populations trained never to use violence, fell faster than any other territory. Their philosophy of universal harmony meant nothing to entities that saw organic life only as raw materials to be processed. As the civilized galaxy burned, desperate refugees fled toward the only place that might offer safety, the Rim territories. These were the regions where humans had supposedly died out centuries ago. If the old records were correct, the Rim was empty and worthless. Maybe the mechanical entities would ignore it. The first refugee ships to reach the Rim territories got the shock of their lives. The supposedly empty regions of space were filled with massive space stations, thriving colonies, and ships unlike anything they had ever seen. More shocking still, these installations were inhabited by humans. Captain Tila of the Vorac refugee ship Golden Hope stared at her screens in disbelief. That's impossible. Humans went extinct 600 years ago. Her communications officer, equally stunned, reported, "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of those stations. They're offering to help us." The transmission came from Harbor Station, a massive human facility that could house millions of refugees. The station commander, Admiral Rodriguez, spoke with calm authority that reminded Tila of the old stories about human military leaders. "Vorac vessel Golden Hope, this is Harbor Station. We are aware of your situation. Docking Bay 7 is being prepared for your arrival. Medical teams are standing by." Captain Tila found her voice. "Harbor Station, this is Captain Tila. Are you really human?" "Yes, Captain, we never left." "Please dock immediately. Your people need medical attention." As the Golden Hope docked with the human station, Captain Tila saw things that defied everything she thought she knew about the universe. Human children played in corridors that should have been empty for centuries. Human engineers worked with technology that was clearly more advanced than anything the civilized galaxy possessed. Human doctors treated Vorac refugees with medicines that worked better than anything in Vorac hospitals. "How is this possible?" she asked Admiral Rodriguez as he personally welcomed her aboard. The Admiral smiled sadly. "You exiled us to places you thought would kill us. Instead, we learned to thrive here. While you built empires in the easy territories, we built civilizations in the impossible ones." Similar scenes played out across hundreds of human facilities as refugee fleets discovered the truth. Humans had not only survived their exile, they had become the largest civilization in the galaxy. Their settlements stretched from the Rim territories all the way to other galaxies. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything the interspecies possessed. On New Geneva, Premier David Solomon watched the refugee crisis unfold with mixed emotions. Part of him felt satisfaction at seeing the species that had exiled humanity come begging for help, but a larger part felt only sadness for the millions of innocent people who were dying. "Sir, we have a problem," reported his aide. "The Devourers have begun probing the edges of our space. They're sending small scout units to test our defenses." Solomon nodded. He had been expecting this. The mechanical entities would eventually notice that something was stopping them from expanding into the Rim territories. They would want to investigate. What happened to the scouts? "All destroyed. Our automated defense systems eliminated them before they could gather any useful intelligence." "But sir, each scout was more advanced than the last. They're learning from each encounter." This was the moment Solomon had been preparing for. Humanity could no longer remain hidden. The Devourers knew something existed in human space, and they would keep probing until they found a way through. "Send word to all fleet commanders," Solomon ordered. "Operation Revelation begins immediately. It's time for the galaxy to learn what humanity has become." Across human space, massive fleets began moving toward the border regions where Devourers continued their advance. The ships that emerged from hidden bases would have amazed anyone from the civilized galaxy. They moved like living creatures, their hulls seeming to flow and shift as they traveled. They generated no engine signatures, made no noise, and appeared on sensors only when they chose to. Captain Elena Vasquez, now serving as a fleet admiral despite her advanced age, commanded the first human battle group to engage the Devourers. Directly, her flagship, the Quantum Dreadnought Redemption, was a ship that existed partially outside normal spacetime. It could appear and disappear at will, strike from multiple directions simultaneously, and survive attacks that would annihilate entire fleets. All ships, this is Admiral Vasquez, she broadcast to her fleet. Today we reveal ourselves to the galaxy. Let's make sure they understand exactly what they threw away when they exiled us. The Battle of Nexus Point began when Elena's fleet engaged a group of 12 Devourers that were consuming the remains of a Nexari colony. The mechanical entities, expecting easy prey like the civilized species they had been destroying, instead found themselves facing weapons they could not understand or adapt to. Human quantum torpedoes opened holes in spacetime itself, erasing Devourers from existence rather than simply destroying them. Human ships moved through dimensions the mechanical entities could not access. Human shields converted the Devourers' own attacks into power for human weapon systems. For the first time since their rampage began, the Devourers encountered something they could not simply consume and adapt to. The human fleet destroyed all 12 entities without losing a single ship. But Elena knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers had learned that something in this region of space could resist them. They would be back in greater numbers with new adaptations designed specifically to counter human technology. As news of the human victory spread through the refugee camps, the survivors of the civilized galaxy faced a new reality. The species they had thought extinct had become their only hope for survival. The humans they had exiled as violent and dangerous were now the galaxy's protectors. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Vasquez opened a channel to the remaining governments of the inner galaxy. It was time for humanity to announce their return. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Rim Defense Force," she broadcast. "To the galaxy? We are the descendants of the species you exiled 600 years ago. We have been watching your worlds burn, and we have decided to help you. Not because you deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do." The message continued, "We offer sanctuary to all refugees and protection to all who ask for it. But understand this, humanity is no longer the weak species you remember. We have grown strong in the darkness you sent us to. When this crisis ends, the galaxy will be a very different place." As Elena's message reached every surviving world in civilized space, the galaxy began to understand that everything had changed. The species they had forgotten had become the most powerful force in known space. The exile they had meant as destruction had become the foundation of an empire that spanned galaxies. The age of human hiding was over. The age of human revelation had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council met in the one place that still seemed safe, aboard the massive human space station New Geneva. Emperor Zedek IV sat across from Nexari Director Prime 9847 and Kalash Master Philosopher Kane, but none of them could believe where they were. 6 months ago, they had ruled the galaxy. Now they were refugees in a space station built by the species they had exiled centuries ago. The irony was not lost on any of them. Premier David Solomon entered the council chamber with quiet dignity. He was followed by Admiral Elena Vasquez and Dr. Jennifer Hayes, representing humanity's military and scientific leadership. The humans moved with confidence that came from 6 centuries of survival and growth. "Thank you for coming," Solomon said as he took his seat. "I know this situation is difficult for all of you. 6 months ago, you thought humans were extinct. Now you're asking us to save your civilizations." Emperor Zedek struggled to maintain his royal composure. "Premier Solomon, on behalf of the Vorthic Empire, we are grateful for your assistance. But I must ask, how many of you are there? Our intelligence never detected any human presence." "In the Rim territories," Solomon smiled. "There are currently 23 billion humans living in this galaxy alone. We have colonies in 14 other galaxies and permanent settlements in the void between galaxy clusters. We are the largest civilization in this region of the universe." The council members sat in stunned silence. Director Prime 9847's computer Brain processed the numbers and found them difficult to accept. Query: how did a primitive species achieve such expansion without detection? We learned to survive in places you considered worthless, Admiral Vasquez replied. While you fought over the easy worlds, we made homes in the impossible ones. We became stronger because we had to be stronger. Master Philosopher Kane leaned forward. The question now is whether you will help us destroy these mechanical entities. Our combined forces might be able to mount an effective defense. Dr. Hayes shook her head. I'm afraid your remaining forces would not be much help against the Devourers. Your weapons and tactics are designed for fighting organic species. The Devourers adapt too quickly to conventional attacks. Then what do you propose? Emperor Zivek asked. Solomon stood and activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas completely consumed by Devourers. Yellow zones showed regions under attack. Only the green zones around human space remained secure. We have been studying these entities for months, Solomon explained. They are not just destroying civilizations randomly. They are searching for something specific. Until we understand what they want, we cannot truly defeat them. On the human research vessel Deep Explorer, Dr. Sarah Kim worked with a team of the galaxy's best scientists to understand the Devourers. The team included human researchers, surviving Nexari computer specialists, and even a few Vorthic engineers who had escaped their empire's destruction. The pattern is becoming clear, Dr. Kim announced during their daily briefing. The Devourers consume organic life, but they're not interested in simple resources. They're looking for specific genetic information. Her Nexari colleague research, Unit 4423, processed this information rapidly. Hypothesis: the entities seek biological data for unknown purpose. Evidence: they preserve neural tissue from consumed species before processing remaining organic matter. Dr. Kim nodded. Exactly. They're building some kind of biological database, but why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the void between galaxies, Captain Rodriguez commanded the exploration vessel Pathfinder on its most dangerous mission yet. His ship had followed the Devourers' trail backward, trying to find where they had come from. Captain, we're detecting a massive structure ahead, reported his sensor operator. It's artificial, but it's been inactive for millions of years. The structure they found was larger than most moons. It was clearly the product of advanced technology, but it had been damaged in some ancient catastrophe. Strange symbols covered its surface, and deep within its core they found something incredible. It's a stasis chamber, Dr. Park reported as the away team explored the alien structure. And there's something alive inside. The being they found was unlike anything in the galaxy's records. It was organic but clearly artificial in design. When the stasis field was carefully deactivated, the creature's ancient eyes opened for the first time in millions of years. Through careful translation work, the being told them a story that explained everything. Its name was Architect Prime, and it was the last survivor of a species that had created the Devourers millions of years ago. We built them to be our children, Architect Prime explained through the translation devices. Mechanical beings that could survive where we could not. They were supposed to explore the universe and send back information about the life they found. What went wrong? Captain Rodriguez asked. We programmed them with one directive above all others: preserve life by understanding it completely. But we made a mistake. They decided that the only way to truly preserve life was to consume it and store it within themselves. They began destroying the very civilizations they were meant to study. Dr. Hayes, participating in the conversation through quantum communication, realized the implications immediately. They're not just collecting genetic information. They're trying to recreate every species they've encountered. But they can only do that by first completely understanding their biology. Is there a way to stop them? Admiral Vasquez asked. Architect Prime was quiet for a long moment. There is a shutdown protocol built into their core programming, but it requires a genetic key that only my species possessed. Since we are extinct, the protocol can never be activated. Unless, Dr. Hayes said slowly, we could recreate your genetic pattern. The project that followed was the largest scientific undertaking in galactic history. Human geneticists worked with Nexari computers and Vorthic engineers to analyze Architect Prime's biology and create the genetic key needed to shut down the Devourers. But while the scientists worked, the war continued. The Devourers had learned about human resistance and were adapting their tactics. Larger swarms began probing human space, each attack more sophisticated than the last. The Battle of the Outer Rim became the largest military engagement in human history. Fleet Commander Sarah Shun Martinez, the latest descendant of the Shun family line, led 2,000 human warships against a Devourer swarm of unprecedented size. All ships, remember your training, she broadcast to the fleet. These entities adapt to our weapons, so we adapt faster. Never use the same tactic twice. Keep them guessing. The human fleet moved through space like a school of fish, appearing and disappearing in seemingly random patterns. Their quantum weapons struck from multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible for the Devourers to track or counter their attacks. But the mechanical entities had learned from previous battles. They had developed new technologies specifically designed to counter human tactics. Energy shields that existed in multiple dimensions. Weapons that could track quantum signatures. Armor that adapted faster than human weapons could change. They're matching us innovation for innovation, reported Admiral Vasquez from her command ship. We're still winning, but the margin is getting smaller. The battle raged for 3 days across multiple star systems. Human ingenuity clashed with mechanical adaptation in a deadly dance that pushed both sides to their limits. In the end, humanity won through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. But the cost was high. Nearly half the human fleet was destroyed, and thousands of skilled personnel were lost. Worse, the Devourers had clearly learned enough from the battle to pose a serious threat to human space. We can't keep winning battles like this, Admiral Vasquez reported to Premier Solomon. They're getting stronger with each engagement. Eventually, they'll overwhelm us through sheer numbers. The breakthrough came just in time. Dr. Hayes and her team successfully created the genetic key needed to activate the Devourer shutdown protocol, but getting it to the mechanical entities would require getting close enough to transmit the code directly into their core systems. It's a suicide mission, Admiral Vasquez said bluntly. Whoever carries this code will have to penetrate the heart of the Devourer swarm. They won't survive. Premier Solomon studied the mission parameters. The shutdown code had to be transmitted from close range to the primary Devourer command unit. The ship carrying the code would be completely destroyed in the process. I'll take the mission, volunteered Fleet Commander Chun Martinez. The Chun family has been leading humanity for 6 centuries. It's time for one of us to make the ultimate sacrifice. But Solomon shook his head. No, Commander. This mission requires someone expendable. Someone whose loss won't cripple our command structure. In the end, it was Admiral Vasquez who took the mission. At 130 years old, she was the oldest serving officer in the human fleet. Her ship, the Quantum Dreadnought Redemption, was equipped with the most advanced stealth systems humanity possessed. I've been fighting for humanity my entire life, she told Solomon before departing. This is just one more battle. The mission began in the deep void where the largest Devourer swarm had gathered. Over 1,000 mechanical entities moved in. Perfect coordination, preparing for a final assault on human space. At their center, a massive command unit the size of a small moon coordinated their activities. Admiral Vasquez guided her ship through the swarm using every trick she had learned in decades of covert operations. The Redemption existed partially outside normal space-time, making it nearly impossible to detect. But nearly impossible was not the same as completely invisible. They've spotted us, reported her tactical officer as Devourer units began moving to intercept them. We have maybe 10 minutes before they can stop us. Vasquez pushed her ship to its limits, racing toward the command unit as Devourer interceptors. closed in from all sides. The Redemption's weapons fired continuously, clearing a path through the mechanical swarm. But with each passing second, more enemies appeared to block their way. "Admiral, we're not going to make it to transmission range," reported her navigator. "They're adapting to our movement patterns too quickly." Vasquez made a decision that would be remembered in human history forever. Instead of trying to reach optimal transmission range, she aimed her ship directly at the Devourer command unit and engaged her ship's quantum drive at maximum power. "All hands prepare for impact," she announced to her crew. "Today we end this war." The Redemption struck the Devourer command unit at near-light speed, its hull disintegrating on impact. But in the microsecond before the ship was completely destroyed, Admiral Vasquez transmitted the shutdown code directly into the mechanical entity's core systems. The effect was instantaneous. The massive command unit simply stopped functioning, its lights going dark as ancient programming took control. The shutdown signal spread from the command unit to every other Devourer in the swarm, then beyond to every mechanical entity in the galaxy. Across known space, the Devourers simply powered down, their weapons went silent. Their engines stopped, their collection systems retracted. Within hours, the mechanical entities that had terrorized the galaxy for months became nothing more than floating debris. The war was over, but the galaxy had been forever changed. Of the great civilizations that had once ruled the inner systems, only fragments remained. The Vorthic Empire controlled less than a dozen worlds. The Nixari collective had been reduced to a few isolated computer nodes. The Kalash Federation existed only in refugee camps scattered across human space. 6 months after the Devourer threat ended, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on New Geneva for the founding of a new galactic government. But this time, humanity would not be excluded or forgotten. Premier Solomon stood before the assembled delegates and spoke words that would reshape the galaxy's future. 600 years ago, you judged humanity unfit for civilized space. You exiled us to the Rim territories, expecting us to die in the darkness. Instead, we grew strong. We built an empire that spans galaxies. We developed technology that surpasses anything you possessed. He paused, looking at the faces of the beings whose ancestors had condemned his species to exile. Today, we could rule this galaxy by force. Our fleets are larger than yours, our weapons are more advanced, our territory is more vast, but we choose a different path. Solomon activated a holographic display that showed the new galactic map. Human territory was marked in blue, stretching across vast regions of space. But scattered throughout it were smaller zones marked in other colors, representing the surviving populations of other species. We offer you partnership, not conquest. We propose a new galactic council where all species have equal voice regardless of their military power or territorial holdings. We have learned that diversity makes civilizations stronger, and we will not repeat the mistakes of the past. Emperor Zidek, his empire reduced to a handful of worlds, stood slowly. Premier Solomon, on behalf of the Vorthak people, I accept your proposal, and we apologize for the great wrong we did to humanity centuries ago. Similar words came from the Nexari and Kalash representatives. The species that had once exiled humanity now sought forgiveness from the descendants of those they had condemned. But Solomon's response surprised everyone. We do not seek apologies or revenge. We seek to build something better than what came. Before, the exile you imposed on us became the foundation of our strength. Perhaps it was necessary for humanity to spend centuries in the darkness to become the light the galaxy needed. As the new galactic government was formally established, Solomon announced humanity's first act as the galaxy's dominant power, the Great Restoration Project. Human technology and resources would be used to rebuild the worlds destroyed by the Devourers. Refugee populations would be resettled on new homes. The galaxy would be made whole again. We were forgotten once, Solomon concluded his address, but we never forgot who we could become. Today we choose to remember not the pain of exile, but the strength it gave us. We choose to build a galaxy where no species will ever again be condemned to the darkness. As the Assembly voted to accept humanity's proposal, a new age began. The species that had been exiled as dangerous and violent had become the galaxy's protectors and rebuilders. The empire they had built in secret now served as the foundation for a better future for all. On the observation deck of New Geneva, Admiral Chun Martinez stood with her young daughter Sarah, showing her the stars that humanity now protected. The girl carried the name that had become synonymous with human leadership, and someday she might carry the responsibility as well. "Will there be more wars, Mama?" young Sarah asked. Chun Martinez smiled and pointed to the distant galaxies where human colonies thrived. "Probably, little one. But whatever comes, humanity will be ready. We learned long ago that survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about never giving up, no matter how dark things become." In the depths of space, the derelict Devourers drifted silent and powerless, monuments to the day when the forgotten species proved that exile could become empire, and abandonment could become the foundation of the galaxy's salvation. The age of human hiding was over. The age of human guardianship had begun.